worker rights, I would even Frank to comment on the worker rights. I mean, you know, I personally don't see all of this protection, so I have no idea. I jumped in self-employed and I run businesses, and so I don't really have enough protection. So do. Oh no, actually,
that didn't go down well.
Laws on the labor properly. Costing me a job every 3 years. After 3 years of teaching in UCD, I have to leave and step outside of my job, not because I'm a bad teacher, not because my students don't like me, but because there is a protection so-called for
Join the union
from my job. I don't join any groups, period. It's just nature. Oh, by the way, I didn't think that the protection is really conditional on being a member of some club, because to me that's not really important.
The negotiating power.
Yeah, okay, anyways. So anyhow, citizens' initiatives. I love citizens' initiatives. My big proposal for the whole federalization of the EU is that it should take a lesson from the Swiss Federation and really have the approach on the basis of the driven from the bottom-up policies. Iceland is fantastic. Another fantastic example of the direct initiative and direct engagement. More of those, the better. Even though I disagree with your guys' initiative, the best of luck with you, and I wish you win against my own wish. Why? Because that actually is the expression of people. And there's nothing more that is needed in a proper establishment, a proper course of governance in this country and in Europe as well, where it's lacking, and in the US, than the initiative from below and the real democratic mandate from real people. FTA, yes, great example, but so is FCC. Federal Communications Commission is very strict in the US. In fact, the US is actually much better in enforcing its own regulations and supervising its own institutions than Europe is. How many bankers in Europe have gone to jail? 0. How many in the US? Hundreds. Happy times. I would like to have that approach that the US has, you know, with camera and with Fox News reporting live, with your man walking out. That's how it should be. Anyways, ISDS, 4 points, and who governs them? It's a very big question. As far as I understand, now, I haven't seen actual mechanism, but as far as I understand, and I be frank and correct me, it is good. The approach is that the EU will appoint certain number of officials and the US will be appointing certain number of officials. Once they are appointed, who they account?
She came in nice.
Another question, there's another question there. Even if they are formally accountable for something, is that something going to have any incentives to actually police it? That's another question going back to the issue of regulation versus supervision. Privatization through court decisions and the EU rules. Well, hey, this is also, we do have that already in the EU, yes? The privatization of the, for example, the requirement that there is competition in the provision of services for cash collection is the EU thing. I'm sorry, it actually doesn't work. Does it always have to result in the public surrender, public ownership being surrendered in favor of the private ownership? No. Sweden is a good example where there has been a mixed system of healthcare provision in hospitals, private, public, and non-profits, and the mutually owned, and the likes, which were coexisting for a long period of time. There hasn't been really any dilution. In fact, in parts of Sweden, there has been renationalization of some of the hospitals. In my view, philosophically, I do not distinguish between the enterprise ownership. What I do distinguish is whether it's efficient and it's delivering the best value for money. That's the biggest question, okay? Unfortunately, not always public sector enterprises do so. In some cases, they do. Electricité de France is a great example of the power-owned monopoly utility provider who is selling electricity all over across Europe and, in fact, now benefiting from the ban on nuclear energy in Germany by selling it to Germany. Okay, they have the capability, fine. ESB, no, bad example. Why? Because it constantly relies on the increases in terms of the charges on the ordinary consumers. And we have very high cost of electricity beyond any connection with the actual true underlying cost of generation. But that's a different story, yes? ESB International, by the way, is profit generating entity and seems to be very successful. Happy times, I have no problem with that. Okay, let me see, I'll stop at that, yes, thanks. I think that Frank can cover the issues much more in depth than I can in some of this.
I'll just start at the top and work down. I'm aware of the door around collapse. I'm personally, I suppose it's very much personal bias is towards bilaterals, because I think people have or countries have much more control in the bilateral situation. But obviously at this stage, regional agreements and regional treaties are really the answer to the collapse of the dollar round. I think the most important point made though was that if ISDS is dropped, and there is a possibility of being modified sufficiently or dropped. So if that happens, then I think from a campaigning perspective, a lot of people will disappear into bulrushes or wherever they go. And from a campaigning perspective, it is a very desirable outcome, of course, I have to say that. But one of the reasons that I wanted tonight to concentrate on the regulatory aspects of TTIP was simply for that reason. Because I believe personally that the regulatory aspects are potentially just as onerous as any ISDS regulation, or rule, I should say. So I would urge people, I think it started in Germany, the consultation on ISDS, and I know that ISDS is a great threat, both from a democratic perspective and a justice perspective. You can imagine, for example, an ISDS tribunal sitting and adjudicating on something parallel to a court system. There are two methods of adjudication suddenly arise in the country. So it's pandemonium in the longer term, not immediately, in the short term, in the longer term, yes. It makes a rubbish of a justice system. In that context, I'll just say something about the formation of the tribunals. When there is a dispute, both sides apply to this, you know this, what this ICSID is. It's a branch of the World Bank, or is it a subsidiary of the World Bank? I can't remember. ICSID is the name of the organisation. I think it's a branch of the World Bank, as far as I'm aware. It's associated with the World Bank anyway. So let's say Joe Bloggs is suing the EU. Well, Joe Bloggs and the EU go and they ask for somebody to be appointed from panels that are kept by this ICSID organisation. There are 20 panels, I believe, at the moment, predominantly sourced in the US at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean they always will be, but you know, at the moment they are. And they're all corporate lawyers, obviously. There are fairly high requirements regarding knowledge of international law and company law and all that kind of stuff. But there's no requirement, for example, to look at, let's say, things like workers' rights and stuff like that. They're not at all interested. There's a very narrow focus, but they are highly qualified. They're paid, sorry, I should do the other part first. So, 3 people then, one is nominated by either the 2 people, one nominated by the EU of the panel, and one nominated by Joe Bloggs, sit down and agree a chair from the panels. That's the way it works. And if you don't agree, then this ICSID or World Bank appoints the chair. That's the mechanism. So that's the mechanism. And it costs about $4 million for each adjudication. It was a little bit more in the case of UCOS and Russia. I wanted to just mention, because somebody asked the question, I can't remember what question it was, that private property in Ireland is protected under Article 43 of the Constitution. And that should be sufficient protection, or these companies can take out insurance or get the government to insure them if they're bringing FDI into the country. There are a great number of options. You know, this is not simply a matter of the only option is ISDS. Now, Constantin did mention the EU and UN processes, etc. in this context. And certainly, yes, I think the size of the campaigns, particularly in Germany and Britain, have probably frightened the EU. And the response to the consultation document, which, by the way, 97% of people who responded to the consultation document said they wanted rid of ISDS. 3% wanted to reform. The EU is trying to reform it. Work that out for yourself. You don't have to be a genius. So, in answer to the question regarding the citizens' referendum, yes, citizens' referendums are great ideas altogether. I've seen a good few in Switzerland, and I'm going to see a Landsgemeinde where 10,000 people who live in this canton Glarus get up and vote on things in the open. It's absolutely, that's participatory democracy. Referendums do have problems, we're not going to discuss those here. But yes, I broadly support the referendum. However, the one you're talking about, I have absolutely no faith at all whatsoever, not even 1% faith, that the EU system of referendum will ever produce any votes. They'll just say it's not acceptable, they can reject it. Yeah, so you know. Yeah, vote again. Yeah, come on. Vote again. That's the other referendum. So yes, in theory it's a great idea, and there's at the moment there's a discussion going on at Commission level regarding making, giving these referendums, popular citizens' initiative, giving them some meaning. Meaning? Make them binding. Never do that, I'm afraid. No, it just. I'm not going to have a debate with you about it now. I'll talk to you outside of it. What is in the interest? What is in the interest of the ordinary people? Well, in my view, it's quite simple. Get rid of TTIP.
Yeah.
There are just too many uncertainties. There's too much we don't know. We can't make it. We really can't make an assessment. We really can't. We simply haven't got the information. And now they tell us that CETA, which has been negotiated over the last 5 years, it's take it or leave it. It can't be amended. That's what they're saying. It simply can't be amended. And they're telling the European Parliament the same thing. Hey boys, you can't amend it, regardless. Can't amend it. So they go away and they negotiate behind closed doors, bring it back and say, here it is, now take it. So, you know, my answer to you is quite simple. That's my union's policy. Scott TTIP. And anyway. Right, workers' rights. Well, I think we should have another meeting about that, to be honest with you. It's true that nowhere in CETA, we don't know about TTIP,